I'm going to pass this off to Matthew now with StructSoft, demonstrate basically how the basics of MWF and how the custom tools that we have for framing for ClarkDietrich now. We've been using these custom tools in-house, but now we're actually allowing the users of MWF now to use these tools at the same time. So I'm going to go ahead and pass this off to Matthew. But if you need information about this product or system, go to ClarkDietrich.com/BIM.
Great, thanks, Mike. Hello, good people. My name is Matthew. I'm a technician here at StructSoft, and I'm going to show you some MWF today and these ClarkDietrich extensions that we've been talking about. So we've been throwing the name MWF around. What is MWF? Well, it stands for Metal Wood Framer, because MWF is capable of working in both light gauge steel and wood. So we're definitely going to concentrate on the light gauge steel today. So MWF is an extension that runs directly in Autodesk's Revit platform. So we recognize, or we work in all of the Revit flavors, structural, architecture, design suites. So we recognize Revit elements as well as their openings. So when we're talking walls, for example, we can recognize those wall types we've been learning all about today. Then we can see the door families within the wall. We can see the window families. We can see the structural openings. And then we have the intelligence of framing those openings based off of user-defined templates. So these elements are all going to be placed automatically within the model for us. So why MWF? Well, we can model directly in the Revit environment. We can coordinate with our clash detection engine, which we'll take a look at today. And this works with linked models, so if we're linking in all of that ductwork, all of the structural steel, we'll recognize the complexity of those elements and frame around them. So like I said, we'll definitely look at that. And then we need to manufacture from our model. So we can extract all of that information with those previously mentioned shop drawings. So this makes MWF a suitable program for contractors, GCs, panelizers, engineers, estimators, you name it. And based off of what we just saw, you can see why all of those people would be interested in using such a software. So this allows us to cover multiple construction types, such as mid-rise, multifamily, hospital, modular. You get the idea here. So we've been talking about MWF and using it to model within the Revit environment. So we need to use our templates that are created within MWF. We'll take a look at those in a second, and then apply them to those wall types. And in these templates, we save information like stud spacing, bracing options, backing, and then we can add additional control to that with a library of, for example here, previously defined corner configurations. So this is a library of joins that comes with the software, which is completely customizable by the user as well. So if there's a specific join that you need that isn't in there, you can make it. The clash detection. So we've been talking about this a few times so far. MWF is capable of, recognizing those linked models that come into the project. So we can see different Revit categories that are linked into the project, that are penetrating our Revit walls. We can create the openings around those penetrations and then frame them based on the element or the category that had been there. So we can recognize a 4-foot round duct differently than a 10-inch rectangular duct versus a cable tray, for example. And once we finish modeling, we need to extract that information either by using native Revit techniques such as the schedules and material takeoff, or we can use the shop drawings engine that is produced and provided within the MWF software, which creates exactly what you see here. A framing elevation, fully labeled, dimensioned, bill of materials is created, and we can also send all of that out to CNC machines if we are interested as well. So right now we have 3 core modules. We have the MWF Pro Wall, Pro Floor, and Pro Truss. All together they make the Pro Suite. We have extensions to our plugin such as the CNC modules I just mentioned, the Clasher and Linear Optimizer, which are extensions that run for advanced clashes and advanced takeoff. Feel free to contact StructSoft for any additional information about that. and then the Home Builder Suite, which is geared just towards people working in wood construction. So we definitely can keep moving. So without any further ado, I'm going to jump into the Revit environment, and we're going to start seeing some panels, some framing. So I have a very nice Revit model here. We can imagine I've received this from my architect. I simply want to strip away a lot of that information I don't need, or a lot of those families, we call them. So the plants and the topograph, the driveways, I don't care about that kind of stuff. I'm interested in these exterior walls right here. So simply by selecting these are again very generic walls. They don't have the ClarkDietrich intelligence in them yet. We're going to look at that in a minute. So these very generic walls, I open up the StruxOff Solution tab, displaying all of the Pro Wall, Pro Floor, Pro Truss commands. I'm interested in the walls. I'm pulling that into here to my environment. So simply by selecting the Create button and selecting one of those templates that I mentioned before. So these templates are user-defined. They're importable and exportable from project to project. I only really need to ever make them once at the beginning of my MWF career. So with these walls selected, I select my template. I click Create. MWF recognizes those windows. It sees that door, and it places the framing directly on the structural layer of my Revit wall. So I get a little bit of lag over the go-to. It just slows my machine down just a little bit. But in a quick second here, I have 3 very nice looking templates. Sorry, very nice looking panels. So we're capable of reading the profiles of those walls, like I said, so the gables there, so slopes we can handle, not a problem. So we take a look at our panel in there. The windows and doors are being framed differently, again, based off of all of that, the intelligence within MWF. But as we know, changes can take place in my project. Maybe we delete a window, and maybe this door gets relocated we'll move them 5 feet over this way. So changes take places, wall heights change, location of elements moves. Simply by making those changes, hitting Regenerate, MWF is capable of recognizing those changes and then updating the framing accordingly, like so. So the big step up with MWF is framing at higher speeds. So I'm going to jump into a plan view here. I'm going to zoom in on a couple of my walls here. I just want to take a minute to also mention this join that I mentioned before. So this is a marker. It's a join marker. We use the expression marker a lot within MWF, such as join markers, split markers, framing markers. I'm going to delete this marker, and I'm going to select these walls, and I want to place a new join marker here. So we looked at these briefly before I mentioned them. So like I said, it's a library of previously defined corner configurations, which is completely customizable. So I'm going to switch the marker. It's going to reconfigure my studs, and voila, I have the new corner configuration. So these joins essentially need to be placed wherever I have a wall meeting another wall, but they can be placed at a very high rate of speed using something very similar to the template maps. So right here in my settings, I have my template map. This is the first rule set that we see. It is a live connection between my Revit wall types and my MWF templates. So with all of those elements mapped to one another, I can simply come in here and I can select, here I have a couple of 3 and 5/8 walls. I have a 4-inch wall here. I have these walls around this column. So with an array of different wall types selected, I hit Quick Create, and MWF is capable of mapping those templates to those walls and creating an array of panels. So you'll also notice here I have down along this hallway, I'll just mention this while these panels are getting created, I have a single Revit wall type. So I have a very long wall. I can see it's actually 35 feet almost. And I can control the number of panels that are placed within these walls based off of those split markers. So this is great for panelizing if I'm interested in shipping all my panels at 9-foot or 10-foot maximum length. That ability is in the software as well. So I'm going to quickly jump into a 3D view here and look at the panels I've been throwing in. Let's just we'll zoom in on this guy right here. And I can see that I've actually been modeling these panels with horizontal bracing going through them. So to do something like this, I simply need to select any member of a panel, and I can open up this panel's individual properties. Now I can change the properties of a panel at any time I like. I can change them from things such as the stud spacing to modifying end studs. And in this case, I'm just going to add some horizontal bracing. So I'm going to just go from the start of my panel all the way to the end. I just grab I'll take a round bar I have here. And then I specified the number of horizontal braces I want in there. I can change these things. Oops, let me get that 3. I can change their height, so it's automatically splitting it up for me, being very specific. Let's say 5'7", and this guy at 8'6". So I've said I need to place that round bar bracing at these 3 intervals. I add it to the panel. I say OK. And now I'm capable of, and there they are, I'm capable of saving that change as I can update that template, or I can create a new template. And for future panels, these elements are already created inside these panels. And if everything is to my liking, to my panels, I can just grab a single guy right here. I should delete this. I'm going to grab this panel label, if this panel looks just the way I need it to, and I can create these shop drawings. So you'll see just how fast it goes. I select my sheet size, so I said 11 by 17. And everything you're about to see within the sheet is completely customizable by the user. Everything from the label the location of the labels on my elevation here, the dimensions, the location. So I have a linear dimension style on the elevation. I have an ordinate dimension style on my top view. There I have a 3D preview. Oh, he's a little out there. I can just pull him in here. And I have a bill of material generated as well. Maximum lengths there. I can use weighted studs, and I can get overall panel length, panel weights, excuse me. So where I can, actually place the center of gravity in this panel, so I know if I was lifting it where it's going to be. I can also activate this viewport and make last-minute changes. So I can copy a stud over here. I can move an element. I can delete a guy, whatever I need to do. And because we're using Revit, when I activate this viewport, I simply need to refresh it here, and I notice that my C0 number goes from 9 to 10, and if I were to jump back into my Revit project, I can see that change has taken place as well. I've doubled that stud right there. So I'm going to switch projects, to a smaller little application here, and we're going to take a look at the ClarkDietrich extensions, the integrated tools that we've created for ClarkDietrich and with their help. So first here I'm going to, again, click Create. I'm going to just throw in a very generic 3 5/8 template. It's just got generic members in there, nothing special. In they go. So we saw them before with a panel label, just like that. And again, I'm going to open up this panel's properties. I'm going to navigate myself over here to the Miscellaneous tab. And here at Stud Selector, I want to specify the ClarkDietrich ProSTUD non-structural option and hit Edit. So this dialog box, again, is slightly familiar. It looks kind of like the wall type creator that we had seen previously. So I just run through my steps here. I'm interested in selecting my design for my wall board here. I drop down again and specify my lateral loads, my deflection here. These walls, you'll actually notice that I have selected, have been created with the wall type creator. And by default, all of that information will already be set in here, such as the stud thickness I need to use and the spacing. However, I just wanted to show you that there are multiple choices here. We can change our stud spacing, if it's a 16-inch desired stud spacing. And down below here, the 362 PDS 125 has been narrowed down. So I select that. There we go. And these members are pulled into the project and are placed inside my template for me. So we can say OK, and OK right here. And my panel is updated. All of that information goes in there. So now when I select these elements, I can actually see the ClarkDietrich columns. So we're framing with native Revit elements. As I said, we can use the schedules and quantity takeoff. So what I'm able to do right here is actually save the properties of this panel as a template. So we can just call this one ClarkDietrich. We'll call it 3 5/8, not to be confused with our generic 3 5/8 in there. So we can actually, we don't need them anymore. Let's get rid of them. There he goes. Perfect. So now when I select an adjacent wall, let's just swing over here to this guy, we can, again, say create, and we can use that template that we just built. So that's how quick templates are actually created, and this will actually help me build up my my library of members of templates very, very easily. So I'm going to open up the properties of this template now, and maybe I need to make a change. Maybe I need to change my top gap deflection and the member I'm using there. So from the tracks option, I just select the ClarkDietrich deflection track command, click edit, and I'm capable of making changes here. So I can modify my deflection gap, I can specify a new track type. So let's use the blaze frame. Again, my web depth, I said these are 362s, and then specify a member. So any of these will, there we go, do just fine. So again, say OK. That member is loaded into my project, and if I select this member here, I see I'm now framing with the ClarkDietrich blaze frame. Good. So again, guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to type them into the chat, and someone will answer them, and we'll try to answer a few live questions if the time permits. So I want to talk a little bit more about that term markers we've been using. We've been talking about those join markers, the split markers. I want to talk about framing markers. So we've developed a tool called the ClarkDietrich. Right here's the ClarkDietrich marker. It's customizable here. I can duplicate it. We can call it something like, I know what I'm looking at right here. I'm going to call it the lay-in. Right here. I can open it up, and I can see all of the control I have over all of the intelligence throughout the ClarkDietrich building types here and framing conditions. So I have the red header option. If I see my preview over here, if I double click it, I have the double red header option. I can drop down to the HDS. I have multiple conditions for that as well. The same is applied to the box header here, a couple of different options. And as I said, the lay-in. So I drop down here and I have selection options. So I can change it to, again, 3 5/8, a different flange. I can override, I can model with the Swift clip if I'm interested in. Just switching over here to the Fill tab, I have all of that control here as well. Jumping to the jams, I can specify a specific member I'm interested in. So again, the red header, multiple configurations, built up C, again more, and the HDS. So let's just use a built up stud. Oh, no, we'll use the red header because it's pretty straightforward. Flange 300. And then I have rough opening options. So I can add additional tolerances here. So we can say, okay. So I've built that ClarkDietrich lay-in header. You'll notice I have a couple of other ones here. So the box 6-inch for our window, we'll throw on the back window in a minute. And I also have this ProSTUD 3 5/8 for the door right here. So if I select this door, I'm interested in applying that marker to it. It's a very straightforward operation. I simply select the data and I grab make this a little bit bigger so we can all see it right there. Specify the marker. And again, like I said before, if a change takes place, I move something, I change a height, I hit regenerate. MWF will recognize the new location and the fact I told it to frame it with that built-up member. Let's hide this door right now, and we can take a look at that. So if I select this member, I can see it's changed from the generic members it was using before, or the generic, not generic, the ClarkDietrich members, and it's changed it to the red header jam. I have a track up here. Let's hide this guy too. We don't need him right now. There's the drop and lock clip for quick and easy installation. The red header itself, it's actually red. Good. That's great. So this allows me a great amount of control over how I'm framing my openings that will automatically recognize. So I manually stamped that marker onto this door, but MWF is capable of recognizing doors, windows. We're going to look at this penetration up here. So I talked about this before, but I want to just go back into that marker dialog box where we were momentarily ago. And we use the term rule set a lot. So a rule set is a folder of information that contains a piece of Revit knowledge and MWF data. So we map one to the other. So for this instance here, I have a clashes rule set. And in here, I've said, whenever I have a duct or piece of duct fitting that is penetrating a wall, and it's between 0 and 5 feet, I want to use that new lay-in marker that I just built. And I want to leave a tolerance 1 inch around the left, right, and top of that duct. And then down below, I say if I find a cable tray penetrating a wall, and it's between 0 and 2 feet, I just want to frame it with a generic single with flat header condition and leave 2 inches all around for installation or fire stop or whatever the case may be. I have that ability to select that intelligence here. Good, we can close that down. And now when I grab this piece of ductwork, the wall itself, not that line, and this cable tray, I can say interference, wall opening at intersect. I specify that clashes rule set I was just mentioning before. And while we're here, I can also deselect categories. So if I want to run this in phases, if I want to ignore the cable tray right now and come back and do it after. So while we're doing this, these openings that are going to be created also are stamped with a status, new, needs review, delete. So I can control this. I can filter through my project and look for that. But let's try to keep an eye on where these elements are penetrating these two walls, because it happens very, very quickly. Once I close this little guy, all of those, or those two openings are created. I recognize the tolerances around them, so the 2 inch gap, the 1 inch gap around the left, right, and top. And now this panel is ready for framing with my template that I've built. So convenient. Say OK, in it goes, and it frames that, get rid of that wall, frames this guy with the lay-in header option, and just my basic one over here. I'm ready to keep going. So for the final wall in this demonstration here, I have this larger exterior wall. We're going to, again, just put in a very generic template. We'll use the default light gauge template that comes out of the box with MWF. So this is the template we use to create the bulk of our templates with. In it goes. There already is a marker on that window, you'll see. So he's framing with that very nice ClarkDietrich configuration. So if we open up this panel's properties now, navigate ourselves back to the miscellaneous tab, and here in Stud Selector, I want to specify the ClarkDietrich structural stud selector. So we open it up, and again we have to run through the same steps as before. So we select our design. We use the exterior curtain wall option here, specify our lateral load, our deflection options. I think I can get away with 360 here. Again, it's a 6 inch stud. Specify a stud flange. We'll use 1 5/8 thickness with a 54. Stud spacing at 16 looks good, and we'll leave them punched. So it's narrowed me down to the 600S 162, maximum height of 16'6". I like that. I can throw that in there. And just to make a mention here, that tracks option we saw before, I can control it from here as well. So if I wanted to put the blaze frame on right away or any of the other track options, that's also possible. So we say OK. OK, again, those members are loaded into the project, and upon regeneration, let me grab this guy, they're now using the SSIA S column 600S 162s. So those are the ClarkDietrich integrated tools we've built for the walls of portion of MWF. Just to briefly and really quickly touch on another portion, another tool we did here, just as a little bonus. I got some model lines up here, and the MWF Pro Floor Framer is capable of recognizing model lines in place of a floor or ceiling. So again, we can just grab a default template and throw it in there, because what I want to show you is the ClarkDietrich joist selector. So now I'm in the properties, or I'm in the joist selector dialog box in the properties of this panel. I can just grab I know that I have a 10-inch gap there, so I can grab a 10-inch member. Again, specify a load, my live load here as well, so that it's all chart-based. I can see my members getting narrowed down. And we can just grab this guy right here. We'll say OK, and those members are going to be placed right underneath those model lines, right on top of my panels. So those are the ClarkDietrich trade-ready joists right there. And just like before, we can now send all of these panels directly to shop drawings, however we need to extract all this information.